Good morning and welcome back to our adjourned budget meeting for the Pitt County Commissioners. And we'll start by turning it over to our manager and delivering our next person.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before we do that, if the board would indulge me, just a few follow-ups from the last board workshop on the budget for fiscal year 1920. From the presentations on Monday, just a couple follow-ups. One is on body cameras. We did actually Finance Department did a survey of all the counties east of I-95 regarding the use of body cameras. And I know Commissioner Perkins-Williams had asked that specifically, and we wanted to answer that. We've got something to pass out of the counties we got up with. I think there was a total of how many counties?
So we called 36 counties yesterday. We heard back from 26, and we heard back from one this morning. So 27 of the 36 counties east of I-95 we heard back from. 16 do not have body cameras, and 11 do. It says 10 on your paper, but we got one in this morning. What you will see is body cameras vary from size, location. There's no rhyme or reason. And there's probably a deeper discussion. You probably have to talk to the individual counties to find out why they have and why they don't.
Then another aspect on the body camera discussion, finance staff did do some quick grant Googling, let's say, in terms of grant opportunities, and they're telling us that there are some grant opportunities out there, as the sheriff was alluding to. So we feel like that there's a good possibility we might be able to get that 50-50% grant participation. But keep in mind that normal cases, the grant is like a 1 year for that first year. So in 1920, we might get 50%, but then that means though in the next year, 2021, the budget grows a little bit in order to keep the full program into place. Not trying to argue not to do it. I just want to point to the boomerang effect it may have in the following year.
And that doesn't include the personnel that we would need to implement the storage and whatever. I don't know.
Well, at this point in time, the sheriff has not requested any additional personnel, so I guess we could assume that she will repurpose existing personnel if that were to become a need.
Okay.
Or otherwise you'd hear from her at some point for additional personnel, if that was the case.
Do you need anything from us relative to heading in that same direction? That's kind of, I thought, was the general feeling of everybody, was just to keep on investigating. And
what I would recommend for the body cameras would be to kind of maybe threefold. One, let's wait and see what the renegotiated Fed bed rate is. Right now it's $78 per day per federal inmate. The fully loaded cost, the consultant delivered, I think it was 108. We're not expecting 108, we're expecting somewhere between those 2 points, maybe like 90, low 90s. That we said if it was in the low 90s would yield about close to 150 or 200.
It would take the budget from $996,450 to $1,146,000.
So I think it was like 100, yeah, about 150, 156,000. So if that revenue comes in, then we also ran an analysis on how many. I still think we should only budget for 35 Fed beds and not up that number, but we ran an analysis. Is this it here? Okay, run through it. I'll let you do it.
So right now in our budget, we budget $75 and 35 inmates per day, and that's how we get to the $996,450,000. So that basically equates to $28,470 per inmate for an entire year. If we were to simply just increase the Fed bed calculation, we'd have to change it from 35 inmates to 55 inmates if the county were to fully fund the 544.
So that assumes the feds were to say 78 is all you're getting, we're not renegotiating. It would then take an average of 55 over the course of the year to pay for the the body cameras.
Sheriff Dance mentioned there were some grants out there. One that she had knew about that was half the cost. If we do it on a half cost basis, then you take your 35 current to 45 inmates per year. On the previous slide I just showed you, those were links to some grant opportunities that we found looking yesterday. We have not dive deep into those grants to tell you what the percentages are, what they fund, and what they don't fund currently, but we know there's opportunities out there.
Let's go back to the previous slide then, let you cover that.
Well, instead of listing them all out, some of these links actually do list multiple grant opportunities. So even at this point in time, I can't even tell you if we qualify directly for them, but it's out there. And another thing that I want to point out, I know this is kind of hard to read, but this is on your list. These are the counties that we did talk to specifically, the Y's saying yes they have cameras and the no's that do not. In talking to them specifically, some were very eager to share their opportunities that they had discovered. So we think there's opportunities for us out there. We also think there may be some opportunities to look at maybe accomplishing the same thing at a cheaper price. I think the sheriff's presented you with the 545. I believe that may be on the higher end. If I'm the sheriff, I don't want to come back to you later and ask for more money. In talking to some of these counties, there may be some opportunities on the data storage that may be able to save us some money. So if we do decide to drop back and punt, I think there may be some opportunities that we can work with the sheriff's office on to get their needs, but at a cost-effective price.
Yes, ma'am.
Comparative to population, and looking at this map, this question came into mind. Which one of these counties with the wise, how do we pair population-wise with what we're dealing with over here?
It's all over the place.
Which one?
It's all over the place.
Yeah, 'cause
All over the place?